As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame. As tumbled over rim and roundy wells stones ring, like each tuck string tells. Each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same. Deals out the being indoors each one dwells, selves. Goes itself. Myself, it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came.
Well, the self-made man is an illusion. That's the starting point. And I can recognize the self-made man as a distinctly American temptation. It's our frontier mentality, etc. It's attractive because it indicates with relative correctness that my own activity matters. It takes me seriously, it takes my freedom seriously, and that is correct. Is there such thing as a self-made person? Under no circumstances. And the proof of it is, give me a few minutes and I will prove that I am not all-knowing, I'm not all good, I'm not all loving. I meet my limitations very quickly. But to meet a limitation means that you are finite, you are defined. That makes you a creature. And what does it mean to have a creator? It means that my life, my existence, is given to me at every moment.
I not only believe in God, I love Him, and I'm utterly dependent on Him every day. And so I greatly thank God for the gift of faith. I had a deep conversion when I was in my early 20s, and it was born out of a great need for God. And I thank God that I had those needs, you know.
I guess the mystery of faith in God is certainly real, because it's almost like something that I'm just naturally drawn towards, but it's like, why am I even drawn towards this? Like, what's the point? And I think that mystery is a very big, a very source of my own motivation, I guess.
The beauty I see in the natural world is what first really led me to God and led me to being a believer. That appreciation of how things work and fit together so beautifully. It created a feeling of great awe in me. And I think in that way, when we think about the gifts of the Spirit and we think about awe and mystery, those things were very powerful for me and always have been.
The life of the creature, the existence of the creature must be given at every moment by the Creator, which means that I'm in an intimate relationship at all times with the one who gives me being. What is God's name? God's name is I am who am. It's not just that I exist, I am existence itself. Can a creature say that? No. I mean, I don't know what the day is going to be, God knows. There will be a day in which my physical existence ends. I don't exist forever. So what does it mean to be a self-made person? Well, it's kind of a bunch of malarkey in the end, because it's an illusion. It's an illusion. Now, I may feel it very solidly in myself. I know who I am, and I expect that I'll be here tomorrow. The truth is, at every moment, my life is given to me. God, first of all, pursues the human heart by creating it. Now, that's different from any other lover. I can pursue a heart that remains forever a mystery to me, but God can make a heart that is already in its depths ordered to Him. So that's number one. How does God pursue the human heart? By first of all giving it, by making it. So the second way He pursues the human heart is by taking a human heart Himself. That is a strange and dangerous strategy. But it's also the only one that will be effective finally, because imagine, I can't love an abstract principle that I don't know.
I was really little, and I had done something and I was in trouble for it, and The details of the story are like lost to me now, but what I remember is like my first response to the whole situation was to get down on my knees and pray. And something about that like spoke to me, something about that became important for me in my life. After taking First Communion, like I wanted to be an altar server, I wanted to be a reader as soon as I could, I wanted to be a Eucharist minister as soon as I could. So that one moment of, you know, like coming to this point where I was like, oh my gosh, like God is like a real thing and he's a big thing and like I care about him and I want to learn more about him, has like pushed me through my life.
I didn't always believe in God, so I feel like when that realization happened, or when I experienced God in such like a direct way that there was no denying that he exists, then it kind of changed everything I did. So it also just changed how I behave or what I do morally or who I surround myself with, or things that used to be okay suddenly weren't okay, and just led to deeper fulfillment in general.
The human heart is bound to be in a conversation of I and thou. That's how the human heart works. And so God, to pursue the human heart, takes on a human heart to be a thou for us. Because I have my I, first of all, and my I needs a thou.
God's relationship to us and our own brokenness and his ability to work through that story and have a relationship with us no matter where we are is good, and it's where we find truth. It's what engages us and brings us into the church, and it's also what makes us beautiful, unique. This idea that's been going through my head a lot is repair what is broken, and that's what God is constantly doing through his goodness and his love, through the truth of who he is, what the church teaches, capital T truth, but then also this sort of truth that he speaks to us.
God lets himself be dependent on one of us, and that's the guarantee that my heart has access to his. And so he's going to allow his human heart to be formed by a human. If I ever doubted that I had access to his heart, I know that I have access to his heart because he called someone mama. You know, you've got all these natural analogies from human life of Don Juan, who loses himself in a whole succession of women that he pursues. Is he pursuing the heart? Yes, in a certain kind of way, but in this whole string of women that he pursues, he proves that his own heart is not true, it's not faithful. It remains in a position of strength. The proof that God's heart is faithful, that I have access to it, is that it's not in a position of strength. So he creates the heart, he takes the heart for himself, and then he lets the heart be broken. That's the way he pursues it. Why? Because no other way would have been effective.
I say more. The just man justices, keeps grace, that keeps all his goings graces.
From the beginning of creation, there's already work to do. Work is not, first of all, a punishment. Work is, first of all, meant to be a prayer. Before I can learn anything else, before God can reveal anything else to me, what God first of all reveals is the good creation and sets me to work in the creation. And so I have to experience it as a privileged opportunity for encountering the good creator.
Even the journey that I've had to become a musician is kind of funny because I never really planned on it. I actually only joined because my sister started and I was jealous of her. But just in that journey of taking that small desire and then writing songs about my life experience, and then later when I developed a relationship with God, writing songs about God, helping just be a vessel for other people to pray to God. Or even when I'm writing songs, sometimes I feel it's kind of out of myself, or I'm oh man, where'd that come from? Or some songs have written themselves. I just feel he has a hand in everything I do, and I'm involved in it too. He invites me into that process of co-creating what we're doing, but he's involved in every step of the way.
I think I find God in my work. Experiencing students' engagement is a wonderful thing, and it's a connection to, my fellow humans that's very rewarding and wonderful. And I try to find ways that I feel like I'm acting in ways that God would want. Again, that's something I always have to question and think about. It's part of praying and, asking, is this the right path? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I hope that means I'm communicating a bit. That means I'm in conversation.
And even after my own sinfulness and my own lack of gratitude turns work into a fitting punishment. And let's be honest, there are days when you think, I'm just exhausted and I can't go on and I see no purpose in my work. Okay, there's that element. It never loses its character as, first of all, fundamentally the foundational prayer. But the sense of the futility of our work, that is something confined to our own time now. Why? Because God subjected creation to futility.
No matter how free things seem, they're not free. Like, everything has a price and everything has a value that's laid on it at the time of its existence, especially nowadays. As soon as it comes into being, there's some dollar sign that's slapped on it. That's really what my biggest fear is that I won't be able to do or live by what I think my purpose is or what I want to, like my vocation. I won't be able to do it because of a lack of resources.
There's a lot of tensions inherent in work, period. And in any profession or vocation, there's plenty of tedium, there's plenty of, things that are irritating, things that are difficult, things where you really don't feel like you're living out your vocation. Like, you can't have that all the time. Those things are unimportant in the face of what I see as, my broader call to work. That's always something in tension, and I don't expect that tension to ever be resolved. It's not a resolvable tension. It's something that I have to continuously navigate.
When we reach the state of perfection, the state of heaven, there's nothing remaining. There's nothing remaining because you see the whole of the suffering has all been filled up. There's an unremovable aspect of just suffering. Now, that does not go away until we reach the state of perfect happiness in heaven.
Work in something you love, but it doesn't mean that you always love every aspect of it. And that, to me, is actually what makes it really valuable, is that that's where you put in the time to do the things to allow you to do the parts of it that you love. So for film, going through the finances and making sure that all of that's working and throwing together the budgets, sometimes sitting down in client meetings. That's not always fun, but it's such a huge, important part, and that's the work that is meaningful. Like, so much of that is the part that makes the other things good. So it's one thing to really love going around and shooting beautiful things, which is great, but even that wouldn't be good if I didn't put in the research to figure out where's the place to shoot and what's the best location and what's the story trying to say and why is this important.
Ignatius doesn't think that one has to flee the world, but the world in itself already includes the condition of its highest possibility. The culminating encounter at the end of the first week of the spiritual exercises, it's with the Creator on the cross. There he is in his creation. He's showing how laboring for us can take on the meaning of love. And that's what work is finally going to have to do. It's going to be an opportunity for me to labor, responding to, trying to imitate, but really following after, trying to follow after the God who labors for me first. Death is going to take on the same meaning. Labor will take on the same meaning. The meaning, finally, that Christ makes of creation is love.
Sometimes you go through something or your conscious mind doesn't process it in a way that your subconscious mind does, and you're not able to access what you've processed or even access how you feel about it, which is, a lot of people go numb during certain things. I struggle with articulating my feelings a lot, so I think through art and through something that doesn't particularly use words, because sometimes words aren't enough, it's the way that it's what I've been called to do.
My favorite thing to do is my career. I mean, I love to paint. I feel like that's the call on my life, is to see beauty in other people and help call it forth. Because through seeing it, I think it helps call it forth. This is so much a part of my life. This is so much how I think and live my life that, that it's not hard to talk about it.
Acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces.
What does fully alive look like? Well, in one sense, it's hard to recognize, I think.
Being fully alive is accepting those limitations and accepting the part of you that you don't like or that other people have told you shouldn't like, and making it into something that gives you satisfaction and something that gives you strength.
Being fully alive is, I guess, tying out all those things that make you you. And that moment where you get to really understand who someone is, that connection and that feeling you get after that, if I could tie that to a feeling, that would be me feeling alive.
I think of someone who not necessarily has it figured out, but they are doing the thing that they love the most, or are involved in the thing that they love the most.
We're fully alive when we are living out our best purposes, living out our true calling, doing what we're called to do in life. And I think that means using our gifts for the greater good.
That's what being fully alive really is, being a servant in the end. So I think for me, the biggest thing is continually trying to find that peace, that sort of quiet that lets me know that everything's okay. It doesn't mean something where it's like finding quiet and getting away, but finding quiet in myself that I can kind of be confident and be available to everybody else instead of worrying about myself.
What does it mean to be fully alive? It means to be fully an individual, to be the unique, unrepeatable person that God has made you to be that no one else is. Now, in those people, you recognize, I think it's in their eyes above all, you see a kind of joyfulness, a glee from not having to be anything else, but also getting to be this particular defined person with my own limits, my own limitations, which are evident.
I feel like the times I've been most fully alive are like when I'm leading people in prayer and like living into like the call. When I've been in Haiti doing things that like bring me life, I'm stripped of my phone or any other distractions or whatever and can just be fully with people or fully myself at its very core.
To be fully oneself means to be completely an individual, and yet not to be self-determining. You see how that closes things back down. Because I know it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. So what you're recognizing, I think, is the joy that radiates out from a life that is fundamentally shared.
St. Augustine was it who said that we will be forever restless until we rest in God, and we have a God-shaped vacuum in us. And when we learn to let God fill that God-shaped vacuum, then we'll become fully alive. That's what being fully alive is, because we're not meant to be just over here and apart from the spiritual life. We are to be filled, and when we become filled with the Holy Spirit, we can be fully alive.
That is finally what faith is. Faith is making space in my own life for someone else. But then I learned in the process that that space was designed by that person for that person. And that's where life can finally take place. All of these, the kind of false freedom, the false individualization that our world offers us now, it all comes out looking sort of homogeneous and mediocre. But when I allow the innermost part of myself to be inhabited by this other, the strange thing is I don't just turn into the other, I become more truly who I am. And so individuality can spring up in its fullness.